This is Tweet Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste. This is Tweet Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste.
Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, or Tweet Street Occupied Scotland, everyone. I'm Simon Bridges, aka Peter. With me this evening, as usual, is my co-host, it's JB&Me. Hi, John, how you doing, mate?
Not bad, Peter. Good to see you. Keeping well?
Yeah, not so bad, thanks. It's been a busy old week in the political scene in Scotland, Johnny.
Certainly has. Never a quiet moment.
Never a quiet moment indeed. We'll start this week where we kind of finished up last week, because we didn't really get any a great deal. The situation with Craig Murray being jailed, again, just for anybody who's been on another planet, the first in 50 years that this charge has ever, somebody's ever been charged with contempt of court on these islands. The first time worldwide that anybody's ever been charged with potential jigsaw identification. The first time in 70 years that worldwide that anybody's been charged with contempt of court and been jailed for it. So, no nice place for Scotland to be. Have you seen any more since last week, John? Have you seen any more or heard any more about it?
Just information about what his postal address is. If you want to send them in, our prisoner plugged in. It's a fact the man should not be in jail. It's a simple fact, and it's embarrassing and it's wrong. And it's wrong because it's taking a man who's a reasonable age away from his wife and kids, and the man should certainly not be in jail. I don't think anyone can argue that.
Aye. My sentiments exactly, John. I think it's a scandal. I think it's an absolute scandal. And to be honest, I'm starting to see a lot more things that I would class as scandalous for this SNP. And it's certainly no their approach to independence. Well, that is scandalous in the fact that there doesn't appear to be one for me at the minute. Certainly, I want it tomorrow, John, as you know, and a lot of other people are the same, but there doesn't seem to be any kind of a thought to it, any mention of it. You'd say that Nicola Sturgeon was on American TV through the week.
I've seen it on Twitter. There was an interview with Nicola Sturgeon, and it aired in an American news channel. It's basically saying that she's going to make sure there's a referendum by no later than the end of 2023. So that really means at the beginning of next year, they need to be coming up with dates no later than the beginning of next year. So if there's going to be an 8 or 9, 10, 12-month campaign. So they really get their finger in it. Interestingly, it wasn't showed by the British media, but that's nothing new. That's the thing we've always suffered from. So you can't blame Nicola Sturgeon or the SNP for not saying that, or it's not getting on the airwaves. They can certainly do better, because one of the things I used to get annoyed about, if you look at, it used to be on Twitter, there was an SNP media feed, like SNP media, you could put it was SNP and SNP media. And I don't know who was running the SNP media, but I think they were doing it with a page rule mobile phone, because they were never on the damn thing, like, and the person might have run it. It was a total wasted opportunity for them to get a message across. So they're, as usual, they need to get their game together if they're going to get a referendum. And they'll get a lot more people back on side if they do not announce a date, because like everyone else who wants independence, I'm sick to back Peter, nothing happening. There's a lot of bad things happening, and there's a lot of reasons for those bad things happening, which aren't good. But like I said to you before, we don't want to fling the baby out with the bathwater, because the only chance we've got independence in the next year or two is with Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP, and she's got to deliver, or she's up shit creek without a paddle, and Scotland is lost. So there's no hiding places anymore. But let's not go down the path of going off on a tangent. There's lots of people who support independence, and I said to you before as well, you look at their Twitter feed, they could be pro-British for all their Twitter feed says. It's constant attack on the Scottish Government and the SNP. Now, there's good reason to do that, but you're constantly hitting on them. You're not saying anything about Brexit, you're not saying anything about Boris Johnson, you're not saying anything about Westminster, you're not saying anything about British media. All you're doing is doing their job for them. You're taking your Scotland shirt off and putting a Britain shirt on, and you're doing their job for them without even knowing it. So we need to wise up a wee bit and focus on what is it. Don't lose sight of what the goal is here. independence is still possible. So let's not destroy let's not do their job for them.
Magic, John. If I had to write something down to read out myself, it would be pretty close to what you're saying. We do that. We have reason to be disappointed with Scottish government. We also have reason to keep our eyes on the UK government and the things that they seem to be doing or not doing that we can see and the effect that it's having on us. So on that note, let's try and do a wee screen share and we'll try and have a look at some of the events of the week. John, right.
I thought again that the screen share up with Murdo wanting tanks in the lawn for the COP thing.
Well, funny you should say that, right? Well, because that is one of the things that I was going to go to. So we'll go to that first, right? We'll go to that first.
Oh, there it is.
Because that was one of the things we were going to go to. Now, I think the man is scum. I think he's absolutely despicable. If I'm honest, John. For the things that he says, the things that he comes out with, he's always trying to stir.
He's a paper, isn't he?
Aye.
He wants to stoke the fires of division. That's all he wants to do. He wants to stoke
hatred and division, as you say, John. To see him asking for this in the first place shows how much a fan he is, right? But he's even more funny because this is one of these parody accounts, mate. If you read what it is. Powered driverless tank is powered by 142 AA batteries, can be remotely operated via an export controller for up to 8 feet away. It will be tested at the next London protest, right? You know, so the fact that he shared that shows how much a fan he is, right? And the fact for what he's asking for shows him up in the area. A scummy, funny, you know?
And he also shot himself in the foot this week as well by saying that does SNP have a Rangers problem? And yet it turns out there's another tweet that Rangers got a big dod of money off the Scottish government to see them through the COVID crisis. So it's just despicable. This is this man flinging the broom stuff and hoping some of it sticks. And I say they just proved that accusing SNP having the Rangers problem, and then the Rangers are taking money off the Scottish government to survive. So I think he answered the same question there.
Aye, well, that's the thing. I think it was about, I don't know, it was about 3.2 million or something like that. Or maybe I've just made that
change, like. And I personally don't see why any football club should get bailed out, to be honest with you.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, football clubs should be able to look after themselves.
Well, the money they've wasted, look at the money, well, they went bankrupt, price, but I mean, the money they still waste is unbelievable.
That was the old club, was it not? Right, anyway, we're going to talk about this. This was a post that was posted earlier on today, John, on Twitter by Carly Wilton. Now, I'm going to open up the thread reader one that's got the full list rather than through the thread of tweets. Basically, the lady she was basically on her way home, didn't have anything at home for dinner, so thought she would stop in at the pub to get a bite to eat. Stopped in at the pub, sat at a table herself. Table behind her was a table full of blokes, mate. And came away with things that were really offensive. About trying to get a hold of a female and the things that they would do, one thing or another, you know, and Carla was sat behind them just waiting to get served, and can imagine, I can only imagine how she must have felt sat there hearing that on her own, angry that no one intervened for the fact that, well, she intervenes, does she then make herself a target? I'm a wee bit, I was angry myself when I was reading it, and I was also angry with myself a wee bit, John, because in a horrible way, I've been in the opposite table at times. And although that wasn't the conversation that I would come away with, it might have been some things, certainly not as bad was trying to get a hold to gang rape and what have you. Certainly not as bad as that, but guys commenting and saying things, and they're sitting as part of a group of lads together. That was always one of those ones that would kind of, oh, that's a wee bit close to the bone, you know, but no say anything. And perhaps no saying anything, this has created the culture that it's currently at, where it's gone from being bravado to now people are saying it, and they're actually taking pleasure like trying to be offensive and say things like that, you know. And just your thoughts on it, just to see if I can get your thoughts on it. I said we would talk about it, to try and open up the conversation, mate, you know.
Definitely, it's awful that poor women can't get in and do some shopping or sit down or something to eat without a gang of idiots coming away with something. But you know what blokes are like, they're going to say a lot of bloody rubbish that's all bravado anyway, but it's disgusting that they'll do that openly. And it's just unfortunate somebody could have reported it and get police out and get out, or even the manager of the place tell them to get out, because there's other folk there. So, it's terrible, unacceptable.
I think it's time. I mean, I'm no a socialiser, so to speak. I mean, I don't go to pubs or clubs or anything anymore, John, as you know. I think it's time that men should be able to kind of interject and say, well, no, hold on, that's no, you're taking that too far. That's very offensive. Don't do that, you know. I think it's maybe on time that these things should be able to be called without people taking offence to it, because at the end of the day, what they're saying is very offensive. But I think it's time that maybe the younger generation realise this as well. For the sins of the older generation. I mean, we're always trying to improve ourselves, we're always trying to better ourselves, John. I'm certainly pricked my ears, or kind of alerted me today when I read it to the fact that if I'm ever in a position where I hear something like that, I'll be the person that says, "Oh,
wind your neck."
Do you realise how offensive that is?" and go at them, so to speak. You know, it's one of those things that after having read it and being honest enough to say, well, do you know, I've actually been at that opposite table and thought, oh, I don't really like hearing this, but I'm not going to say anything because football buddies or this or that, you know. But at that table now, I think it's going to be the case where, well, hold on, that's what you ordered, you know, and explaining. Not that you should have to explain why, but attempting to explain why, so that the people that are doing it realise themselves, you know. I think it's maybe on time that we were doing, or everybody was doing that. I mean, women have got it hard enough as it is at the minute with this Gender Recognition Act. I mean, we're going to be getting a guest on next week, or maybe not next week, maybe the week after. John, I'm still waiting for confirmation. James Esses. Through a similar situation to Lisa that we had on last week, and his profession, he was being accused of being gender critical when he was only black, you know, and pretty much they were trying to cancel the man, you know, for standing up for what he believed to be right and what is scientifically proven to be right, you know. We'll get him on within the next 2 weeks. He's got a fundraiser that I was keeping a keen eye on. That yesterday it broke the £50,000 mark that he was looking to achieve. However, given the money that's behind this, the organisations that are pushing this ideology, it might end up needing more than that. So please keep donating until such times as he's done what he's had to do, you know, because for the man to be cancelled for standing up for what's scientifically accurate, you know, standing up for biology, you know, it's scary times. How's your thoughts on that, John?
I mean, everyone should, as long as you're not criticising someone's way, like everyone should be able to live their life the way that they feel to live it, as long as it doesn't impinge on anyone else's liberties, freedoms, or points of view, then so be it. You know, But it's a very dangerous time to be taking any side at the moment, because you can be accused of doing a lot of things you ain't. And that's just with the way things are going at the moment. So you need to be smart and arguing your corner, be careful what you say, and be factual in what you say, so you can't be criticised.
Yeah, well, I mean that's it. This GRA thing doesn't seem to be going away. I don't know if you've seen the Andy Whiteman's press release.
I read it, but I don't know if it come to hand. I did read. I might see something about him, like.
It was in respect to, again, a disagreement between the Green Party ideology with in regards to trans versus Andy Whiteman's views on it. And it was this Ailey person here, the thing that I'm putting up here. These are some of Ailey's communications. Diapers as much as the next trans girl, but dang. There are some suggestive messages there, and then there's some very rude messages as well. Which
You're always going to get that. Whoever's promoting one side of the argument against the other is always going to highlight the person that's saying the most offensive thing on the opposite side. So you're not going to get the person like we had before, somebody come along and try to put a progressive, inclusive argument. They're always going to highlight the worst element of the opposite argument, and that's what you're always going to get. And it's a lazy way of trying to win an argument, isn't it?
Well, see, this is kind of a, you're always trying to look for information that's factual, John, and the fact that what Andy shared over the past, I think it was the past 40 hours, it could be longer ago than that, rather than seeing it the past 40 hours. Having read through it, and then kind of try to catalogue back to what you can remember happening at the time. It has the account that he's put across seems to be very factually accurate for my memory of it, you know, and it's like, right, okay, I can remember this, I can remember that. So with these other things going out about these individuals, it seems to be you've got people careerists who've got no interest in politics, no interest in Scotland as what it should be, an independent country. You've got them coming in and muddying the water for the potential to make Scotland an independent country. And that doesn't sit well with me. Even though it's SNPs on it, doesn't sit well with me, the fact that these people are Greens as well. I mean, no, I don't agree with your ideology. I'm pushing and trying to push for my country to be independent. And the things that you're doing and the things that you're doing that are hampering that, I can't sit back any longer and say I'm going to accept it. You know, and when you see all of these other folk coming away with things that they're coming away with, and the things that are happening with Brexit, all the things that are going on with the UK government, how are we no further away from them than what we should be, especially given how what Bojo said, what he just said the other day about when he was on his visit, the offensive comment that came away with about minors, etc. I mean,
yeah, right, but that's classic British divide and conquer. I mean, it's like Scotland's in its own wee self-contained bubble that what happens outside Scotland but inside Britain's none of our business. They make the decisions and we just take the decisions. So as you said, look, Boris Johnson try to make out that Margaret Thatcher was some sort of visionary closing pits. Fact of the matter was, she was importing coal for places like Poland to undercut the British coal industry. And I was a lad at the time she was Prime Minister, just a young bloody boy, Christ, but there's no such thing about climate change in about them. It was all just about keeping the coal-fired power stations going with foreign coal. They didn't give a damn about damage to the environment in the days. Nobody was interested in it. It wasn't on the radar, and it barely was in the media, if at all.
Well, see, this is, I mean, look, this is the Egypt man. This is the buffoon here.
I've seen this.
To apologise to world leaders you may or may not have been rude to over the last 12 months, and ask us what your strategy is to try and rebuild trust. And Secretary Kerry
told me that this man is a very smart and capable man.
Stop that.
It's called diplomacy.
That's fantastic.
Mr. Foreign Secretary, you've accused the current U.S. President Barack Obama of harboring a part Kenyan's, quote, ancestral dislike for the British Empire. You've described a possible future U.S. President, Hillary Clinton, as someone with, quote, dyed blonde hair and pouty lips and a steely blue stare, like a sadistic nurse in a mental hospital, unquote. You've also likened her to Lady Macbeth. Do you take these comments back? Or do you want to take them with you into your new job as some sort of indicator of the type of diplomacy you will practice? And then one for the Secretary of State. What confidence do you have that as Foreign Secretary, Mr. Johnson will represent the interests of anyone but himself?
I'm afraid that there is such a rich thesaurus now of things that I've said that have been one way or another, through what alchemy I do not know, somehow misconstrued, that it would really take me too long to engage in a full global itinerary of apology to all concerned.
You have an unusually long history of wild exaggerations and frankly outright lies that I think few foreign secretaries have prior to this job. And I'm just wondering how Mr. Kerry and others should believe what you say, considering this very, very long history. And Mr. Kerry,
I appreciate the First Amendment in your right to free speech, but I think we need chapter and verse on this stuff. Sorry.
Go ahead. This is what you would do if you were in my place.
I'm sorry. Look, I mean, let me just repeat my point, which is that I think people are more than welcome to rake over stuff I've written over many years, but I think the most important thing is to get on.
That's the buffoon, mate. That's the kind of that's who's running the show, right? And we're still attached to that.
But we do like to make fun of him, right? And he's easy to make fun of, but we kind of get. He is a very intelligent man, whether you like it or not. He's a buffoon, but that's an act. But he's also been groomed for this position, and Brexit and him and the whole thing. This has been planned for years. This has been years in the making. This just wasn't a pile of accidents. He was groomed. He's a very intelligent man, even though he acts a buffoon, and he's very, very dangerous. He's horribly dangerous, and we like to dismiss him as a buffoon and an idiot. And he said a lot of stupid things, but he is intelligent and he's very, very dangerous.
They're all actors, mate, as we know. They're all actors. This was something that you shared earlier on in the week, mate. Just going to play this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can't underestimate how big a role the media play in this, because the Good Law Project took them to court to prove that Boris Johnson lied in Parliament. He misled Parliament multiple times, and they proved it in a court of law, and yet there's nobody in the media demanding he resign. So that just shows you how complicit the British media is with the government. They're both in it together, and they're creating an Orwellian state. All they're going to do is support the government and help hide up what the government's actually doing.
Well, that's it. I mean, just to top it off, we'll finish. Well, we'll not finish, but we'll play this one here just to get all the arseholes at the road on the one sitting there.
The question about the future of Scotland is obviously a question for the Scottish people, but the point I'm making is
you don't want to give them the choice. Labour doesn't want to give them the choice.
That's not true. What Labour is saying
you're not going to allow a second referendum.
The priority at the moment is on the recovery. Every political party going into that general election, into the elections earlier this year, said the priority is
so if you agree with the principle, when would it be appropriate to allow the Scottish people to do as you believe, to allow them to have the form of government that they want? When would be appropriate for a second referendum?
When we have come through the recovery and started to grapple with some of the issues in relation
within the lifetime of the Scottish Parliament? Within the lifetime of the Scottish Parliament?
Let me try and see this through the eyes of some of the communities we've just been talking about in the north.
I'm just looking for an answer. Is it going to be within the lifetime of this Parliament? You said once the pandemic's
No.
over.
I think that for the lifetime of this Parliament, we should be concentrating on recovery.
Classic British deception and diffusion there. Eh? I mean, whatever way you're an independent country or not, the economy is always going to be an emotive issue. There's always going to be say, oh, the recovery isn't complete yet. A recovery could take 20 years, and there's always going to be roller coasters within that period of time. So it's classic British diffusion there. Let's avoid it. Let's push it down the road. And remember, this is a man also said as well about Northern Ireland, when they were talking about having a referendum about unification, that really wasn't up to it again. He's trying to poo-poo that as well. And that's written into the Good Friday Agreement. When they want it, they can have it. And Keith, as I like to call him, Keith Starmer, he's trying to poo-poo that as well for the good of the British cause. Another absolute clown, but a very intelligent, but another dangerous man. So there you're getting 2 for 1. Boris and Keith. They're both at the same pot, mate. You can't get a fag paper between them.
And I can't know what that's funny on.
I think I've seen that picture and I put on it. The new Rocky movie looks a bit shite.
Aye, it does, mate. It does. This man is a. He's
a clown and all. But let's remember, many MSPs you got? 2 or 4 or something. 8.
4, is it? I don't even know.
Is it 4 eyes? So they've have to. So you can get the whole Liberal Party in one mini now, by the way. It fits in one mini. The whole Liberal Party fits in one mini. So that says it all about them. They're nothing to do with it. They're irrelevant.
No, they're as you say, irrelevant, mate. They've got nothing, absolutely nothing that they can contribute to Scotland. Nothing at all. And just to top this off altogether, mate.
Brilliant, eh? The Imperial Death March. And that was the dub, by the way. I thought it was when I first seen it.
Is this actually the band playing this then?
They're actually playing that. Surely no.
I can't wait to the end. His end.
Aye, bloody hell, eh?
Aye, mate. Aye, so that's pretty much what I've been keeping my eyes on.
Another thing as well is that we're 100,000 lorry drivers shot. That's where all the shops are. Now again, the media are playing a blinder here and been in the government's pocket. They're not highlighting the shortages in the food. They're still talking about dancing about this wee pandemic and not basically blaming it on Brexit and not highlighting how empty the shops are. So they're in the government's pocket because they'll say they don't want to cause a panic. As soon as they start highlighting it, it'll cause panic buying. But there's nothing to panic buying the bloody shops anyway. So we're now going to get 2,000 troops for Dad's army to go in and replace 100,000 EU drivers that have been forced out of Britain by Brexit and the xenophobic racism that basically people voted for and the lie that they voted for. So good old British, and no doubt the media they'll portray it as a Rook's Drift type victory and a Dunkirk spirit, getting spuds for God knows where, to somewhere at the top of Scotland and stuff like that. So it's just how they've been manipulated. They caused the situation, they're going to manipulate the situation, and they'll keep manipulating the situation to try and make it look like some sort of great British victory.
As is always the intention, isn't it, John?
Yeah, it's always how do we manipulate this situation to suit the cause, basically. And there's people paid to do it.
No, there's a few gatherings coming up. One on the 28th of August at Faz Lane. It's where I'm sure it's all under one banner that's doing that. This one here on the 11th of September. Again, it looks as if it's all under one banner that's organising that. There's a few other events going to be happening. Yes events, Yes Bikers are going to be doing some getting out onto the streets. So you get the Yes Bikers that I've seen. I'll need to try and find advertisements for them. You've got the Yes Bikers, you've got Now Scotland, who are doing track cover events. I believe there's going to be a protest outside of Scottish Parliament on the opening day of Parliament.
Yeah, they were actually pushing they basically want to push the Scottish Government about getting Indy, get it going now. There's people suffering now, so where's our independence campaign?
Right, and I think Women Won't Waste are doing another protest as well outside Parliament opening day.
I believe they were another very worthwhile cause.
Yeah, I think that's for Women Scotland, and I've seen an announcement for that. Right, I wanted to talk about this one here. No Quinn. Now, this was on during the Euros, John. Right, and I sent a message to Noel asking if we could use this on the podcast. I've went through his page. There are so many different styles, different songs. He's absolutely fantastic. I don't know how old he is, right? But he's absolutely fantastic. This one was Yes I Can Do. This was the reason why I'd asked it. Obviously, the Pro Scotland stance, mate. I know we didn't really do too well in the Euros. However, listen to this. What do you think of that then, John?
The wee lad can belt out a tune, can he not?
Aye, it's fantastic. I'd seen it at the time. Obviously, it was just before the Scotland and England game, I'm sure. And I'd seen it at the time, and I sent him a message, and I said, "Is it all right for you use it on the podcast?" And he said, "Yeah." But then I don't know if the Christian Eriksen thing had happened at this point. That kind of took over a wee bit, and then other things were happening with the fact that England had got to the final, and we were all, I was certainly trying to avoid everything.
How did they again in the final? How did they do in the final, mate? Can you mind?
I don't know, but they'll be telling us for about 60 years that they nearly won or something like that.
Aye, did they get the replay they thought they were due?
Aye, they're replaying them again in 4 years' time. They never won, mate, they never won. No, but I just wanted to give a big up to Noel Quinn. Visit his page. There are plenty wee clips that are fantastic. Shows his variety. Shows how he doesn't need to stick to one specific song. I mean, type of song. So he's paid a wee visit. He's a cool wee visit.
Good. Nice one.
So that is pretty much where we're at. I'm going to big up now some people. So For Women Scotland, who have got a couple of events coming up. Right, I need to get here. We've got a couple of events coming up. One of them is a protest outside Parliament on Parliament's opening day. Again, drawing attention to Scotland jails journalists. There was a protest which was Friday the 6th, but there will be ongoing announcements for this. So keep your eyes peeled, folks.
Yeah.
And on the next show, the next Again show, we're going to have James Esses. This is the chap here.
Yep.
This is the chap who had dared to kind of back his own knowledge in science biology debate, and they try to cancel him for it. So we'll find out more about what he went through and the lack of support when we get him onto the podcast. And before we finish up, I want to just, this is going to be, as a matter of fact, there's going to be a new podcast. There's still some doubts about how it's going to be formed, etc. But it's with three guests who've appeared in the show: Denise Finlay, Lisa Keogh, Claire Samani, and For Women Scotland's Marion Calder. I'm going to be doing a podcast. So I'm going to be doing an exclusive intro with them on Wednesday of next week to find out a bit about it, John. Going to put it onto our YouTube page, the first one, and then they're going to run wild with whatever their ideas are. So
good on them. Pass on.
We'll find out more about it over the next few days. But this is a wee promo that I've done for this podcast that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to play it on here.
Very good. Very good.
So the podcast, I believe, is going to be called The Cauldron. That may change, but as it sits at the moment,
That's a good idea. That's a good name, that actually, I think. That's
what it's going to be called. You've got experts in engineering, health, literature, and law who will be contributing. And I look forward to Wednesday to find out a wee bit more about it, if I'm honest, Sean, and provide our listeners and potentially the Cauldron's new listeners with some information.
Excellent.
So I'm kind of looking forward to that. It's just something we'll be introducing, mate.
Excellent.
To say next week it may be James Esses, or it may be the following week again. Got another few potential guests in the pipeline, John. Some that you may know, some that one in particular that tags on to just about every post that you do.
Who's that like? Oh, you know, don't say it then. Tell me on Twitter.
So they tag on to just about every single poster that you do with their own wee poster afterwards.
Really?
We know who it is the minute you check. So I've asked them. They've tentatively accepted.
Right.
So still in discussion stages with that. And there's another couple of surprises that I don't want to reveal too much about straight away, but there's a couple that we're in talks with it as well. Even come on and do a wee podcast guests like we've been doing with some of the ISP ones. We'll try to make it something that's available for anybody who wants to have a comment, anybody that's got any wishes. Anybody that's got a point of view that they don't believe is getting heard. If they want to get it heard, well, this is your opportunity. it's done without being offensive, without being bigoted or racist, or what have you, then we'll try and accommodate anybody within reason. So, if you're interested in coming on the podcast, get in touch with myself or get in touch with JB, and we'll see when we can arrange it for. John, anything you want to say before we finish up for this week, mate?
No, let's think we'll just try to remain positive. There's just a wee bit of summer left. COVID rules have been relaxed, so let's try and get out a wee bit, still be safe, and try and enjoy what's left of summer. There's a long, cold winter coming.
Aye, well, that's hopefully it's just a long, cold winter, and no a long, cold, miserable winter with coronavirus and everything else that goes with it. Right, well, that being us for this evening then, John, I just wanted to say thanks very much for everybody at Tweed Street, Occupied Scotland, Tweed Street Scotland Occupied, the Satirical Saltire, the Cinnamon Bridges, the JB's White Steak. So thanks very much and good night.
Thank you. Cheerio.
This is Tweed Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for Unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste. This is Tweed Street Satirical Saltire, broadcasting to you for Unoccupied Scotland. Amplifying women's voices and saying women won't waste.